What's up, guys? It's Chicago Bears Insight with your host Ian, and today we'll be previewing the August 14th matchup between the Chicago Bears and the Jacksonville Jaguars in preseason week 2. A lot to talk about. Obviously, Martellus Bennett is cleared to play now. He probably will most likely play in a preseason game. He was able to practice this week in Bourbonnais, where the Bears in training camp. This is also the last week that the Bears will be in Bourbonnais, so they will be practicing in Hallis Hall for the remainder of the preseason and going into the regular season. And some other guys were also able to practice. Craig Steltz is now cleared to practice. Chris Conti is cleared to practice. Chris Conti, who's battling for a spot in safety, most likely free safety if he were to play, and it'd be surprising if he wasn't deeply competitive. Obviously, the competition is wide open, but his familiarity with the system and being a veteran gives him an edge in that battle. But I'd be surprised if he wasn't competitive. If he didn't win the job, I would doubt he would at least be a number 2. So see how that goes. The competition at wide receiver is still not decided. We probably won't know anything who the number 3 wide receiver will be until late preseason, or maybe not even in the regular season. Obviously, when final cuts are made and the 53-man roster is revealed, it will be very clear who the number 3 receiver is. But no one's really stood out. Chris Williams is still out with a hamstring injury, which is very unfortunate, seeing that he showed a lot of explosion in the preseason game against the Eagles with his 70-plus yard touchdown, where he bobbled the ball and didn't even break stride. It was very impressive. And he was also supposed to battle for a spot at the return position for punt and kick. So it's very unfortunate that he's still out with a hamstring injury, and I do hope that he comes back healthy and can continue to play well, and he can earn a roster spot and add a dynamic to the Bears, which they don't really have on a team. We have a bunch of really tall possession receivers, but no one that can really stretch the field. Obviously, Randy Moss, for your big, tall, and fast, would be preferable, but Chris Williams is like 5'9" or 5'8" or something. He's really short. But he's really fast, so I mean, if he can play really well, I would mind it. But getting off topic, Josh Morgan, from what I've heard, is doing the best so far. I mean, they haven't really disclosed anything. I like Josh Morgan the most. Michael Spurlock was also very impressive in the preseason game, but they haven't released anything regarding the wide receiver position at all. And I'd be surprised if anything really is released leading up to this game. Or I think a decision obviously will be made when final cuts, but I think we'll know who the number 3 is most likely the 4th game of the preseason, and if not, then when cuts are made. That's the latest. Tight end is another position where depth is actually probably better than we thought. It was only one preseason game, obviously. You can't jump the gun too much. I read an article where a lot of guys were jumping the gun a little bit on Zach Miller, saying he's a beast. He's going to probably take snaps away from Martellus Bennett, and that's simply not true. Martellus Bennett played in 90% of the snaps last year. Actually, I think it was 90 plus with a 90.1, so it's not too significant. 90% of the snaps last year, so he's pretty valuable to the team. Now, if let's say Zach Miller does play well the rest of the preseason, he continues to be impressive. Possibly could see more 2 tight formation, so like 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and that's a possibility, but I doubt it. Well, I don't doubt it, but Martellus Bennett means a lot to this offense, especially since he's a great athletic receiver and he can block better than Zach Miller. Then, yeah, but don't forget about Dante Rosario either. I mean, Zach Miller had a good preseason game, but Dante Rosario is a very athletic guy too. He's got underrated ball skills, and he can catch the football. He's a good blocker as well. So Dante Rosario is another guy to definitely keep an eye on with Zach Miller, who will probably both make the roster, especially if Zach Miller could stay healthy, which in his past he hasn't been able to. He's only played in 4 regular season games, and that was in 2011. He hasn't played in a single regular season game since then. So if he can stay healthy, he's definitely a good candidate to play regular season. He's a natural pass catcher, and I think he can block a little bit. He can definitely. He was very versatile in the preseason game. He played up at wing. He had played a fullback, or he played in the backfield. I shouldn't say necessarily played fullback, but he was in the backfield and the fullback spot. So you know that they trust him to block in the backfield, and Zach Miller, if he can stay healthy, can be a good candidate. But Dante Rosario, with his familiarity with the system, is definitely a lock, I would say, if anything, to make the roster. So we'll see what happens. I'm not making roster predictions quite yet because they haven't trimmed the roster yet, and they don't need to. I think until after week 2 of preseason. I think it's after week 2. After everyone's make their games. I think after Sunday they need to have their roster trimmed. I think 75. If I had to guess, I forget when that is, but I think it's Sunday. So they have to make cuts eventually to 75. It goes from 90 to 75 to 53. So we'll see what happens when they trim their roster. Now, an area of concern, depth-wise, is strong side linebacker for the Bears, where Shane McClellan, they want to get the most out of him, so they're really hoping that he can pull it together during the preseason games and during the regular season he can play. There isn't a whole lot of depth there. I mean, the only guys I can name off the top of my head is Kasim Green or maybe even Jonathan Bostic, who is supposed to play the middle and weak side. So, but Bostic is a very versatile guy, so he could probably play all 3 positions, but won't be asked to. But McClellan, he, being a defensive end, he converted to linebacker this season, so they're really hoping he can play that position, and he really struggled against the Eagles. Now, granted, the Eagles run a very unique offense. It's very hard, I would think, to judge a player's performance against such a unique offense. Now, it doesn't excuse his poor play necessarily, and his coverage was definitely very poor against tight ends versus the Eagles. So hopefully that's just a thing that because the Eagles run such a unique system, he can get it together against the Jaguars, who offensively are not that scary. They're not. I mean, I can name Toby Gerhart. That's probably the best player they have on their roster on offense. So I mean I can't really name any offensive firepower other than rookies. I mean, Marquise Lee played at USC. He's a very explosive player, and I know he was drafted by the Jaguars. He's really the only other guy I can think of right now. I'd have to look at their roster and think about it, who is really a threat. But I'm interested to see how Blake Bortles plays. I mean, this is not the Bears, obviously, but I want to see how Blake Bortles plays. I'm very critical of that pick the Jaguars made to pick up Bortles. I do think he would have gone in the first round because of the developmental talent that you can get out of him, kind of like a Derek Carr. I think that's the right one. Derek Carr, where he didn't go in the first round, but he can develop him. After 1 year, he can play. I think the plan with Bortles is to have Chad Henne play season and have Bortles play. So I'm interested to see how he plays because he was one of my favorite guys coming out of the draft, even though I didn't like the pick. But I'm interested to see how he plays because I really like him. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. He's got that build like Andrew Luck in a sense. I'm not saying he is Andrew Luck, but he's built like him where he can move around, but he's got the big arm, and he's a really good player, so I'm interested to see him play. He's one of the few guys I'm interested in seeing play other than it's not a Bear. So, but getting back to the Bears, other than what I've mentioned, there isn't a whole lot of issues. Brian De La Puente is still out. He has a sprained MCL, so he's probably going to miss the rest of the preseason, which is unfortunate, but he's a veteran, so you don't have to necessarily worry about him losing development. But you would like if he could get more playing time in the system. But thankfully, he knows Aaron Kromer our offensive coordinator, former offensive line coach at New Orleans, where they played together. So they have that chemistry. So I don't think it'll be much of an issue with him being gone. If he misses time during the regular season, that can mess up some depth a little bit. But we are very deep at offensive line, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Jordan Mills is still in a boot. It's precautionary from what I've heard. There's nothing wrong with his left foot, which he broke in last season's season finale against the Packers. I think during warm-ups he broke it before the game started, so hopefully he can be back for the regular season. He definitely won't play this week, I would think. So I hope the offensive line can get healthy before the regular season. And we can go in the regular season playing with a full, healthy offensive line because what we always wanted, Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears have never had a great offensive line until last year. So I'm hoping, and maybe the rest of the Chicago fans are hoping that the offensive line can stay healthy, and because the defense, I think, even for as many good players as we have, is good. I think it's going to be just above average. I mean, you don't go from being terrible to the greatest defense in the National Football League or to a top 5 defense. It's not going to happen. Although I wouldn't necessarily be mad if it happened. I mean, I wouldn't be disappointed. Last season, I made the prediction that the defense was going to be bad and the offense was going to be good. But I wouldn't have minded if the defense did play well. So I do think the defense will be better, but it'll be very average. And the offense, if it can stay healthy, will be very, very good. I know we're getting off topic a little bit. I'm just kind of talking about predictions going into the regular season. So I'll get back to the matchup between the Jags and the Bears. Now, the Jaguars, still developing team. They're not going to probably be very good this year. Their defense is probably going to be the lifeblood of this team going forward because of Gus Bradley's connection with the Seahawks, and everyone knows how good their secondary and defense is in general. So definitely the defense is going to carry that team, but they aren't going to carry them like super hardcore to like a 13-3 season or something. Like nothing crazy like that, obviously, but like 7 wins at most. At most, like I'm not saying that that's how many games they're gonna win. I'm saying 7 wins would definitely be the most they win. But anywho, now that we're done visiting Fantasyland for a little bit, going into the game, one of the things that I want to mention real quick is that Jimmy Clausen, after last week's good performance against the Eagles, will now get the opportunity to start, or not start, I shouldn't say start, play number 2 behind Jay Cutler. Now, I don't know if that means he will play with the number 2s, like if they'll play with the second string, or if they'll insert Clausen maybe with some 1s and allow him to play around with that, or not. Now, that doesn't mean that Jimmy Clausen won the second job or Jordan Palmer lost his job or something. They're just evaluating everyone, giving everyone equal reps. So I think this would happen regardless of Clausen's play last week, but you can speculate that because Clausen played so well last week that he essentially took the job from Jordan Palmer. But like I've said before, it's one game. You got to evaluate. I think after the 3rd preseason game, or definitely after this game, because this is 2 games, and then, like I've mentioned, they have to make cuts to 75 at some point. So we'll know after this week what guys can play well, and if they play consistently, like if Clausen plays well again, you can assume that he's definitely going to make the roster in some form or fashion, whether it's just the 75 or if it's going into the 53-man roster. If Palmer plays well, and if both quarterbacks play well, like Palmer and Clausen play well, then this is going to be a battle that's going to go deep into the preseason, and I'm excited to see how it plays out because the whole time I've been a Bears fan, the quarterbacks haven't been very good. So to have good quarterbacks on our team, especially backup, because Jay Cutler, with his question mark at health, to see if he can stay healthy this year, it's definitely in question, and having good competition at backup to see who can be the better backup and having the best possible guy behind Jay Cutler is very important. And if we can have another Josh McCown essentially playing behind Jay Cutler, then I will take it. I'm still kind of disappointed that Josh McCown left, but it is what it is, and I hope he plays well in Tampa Bay. I think this game against the Jaguars will be a good game for his backups, especially. I think this is going to be a game where a lot of competition for those second team roles, like the quarterback position, for example, with Jimmy Claus and Jordan Palmer, that competition is going to be very much looked at and highlighted for the coaches. Excuse me. It's going to be very much highlighted. Safety as well, receiver, all these positions I've been talking about, it's going to be highlighted, I think, a lot in this game. And what you take out of it and what the coaches take out of it is going to mean a lot going into the future, into the third preseason game, into the fourth preseason game. Because in the third game, that's when they start game playing. The starters get a lot of reps. And then the fourth one is when a lot of rookies, like it's the rookie highlight reel. And so this is the game where guys like Jordan Palmer and Jimmy Clausen got to make a statement, got to say, this is my backup role to earn, and they just got to win. And may the best man win the job. So that's what you want in competition, and that's what we're going to get. But on that note, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Go follow me on Twitter at ShyBearsInsight for all your Chicago Bears and NFL news. And I will see you guys for the recap video for the Chicago Bears and Jacksonville Jaguars. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.